Hello everybody, how are we doing today? Yes, I still have internet for now. So, let's talk about Trump suggesting red flag laws be used to take CNN anchor Chris Cuomo's guns away after viral Fredo outburst. Do we want Trump in charge of deciding who's too crazy to own a gun? No, we don't want anyone in the government in charge of deciding who is too crazy to own a gun. Plus, I can't help but feel that this is just sort of a part of Trump's little hate boner for Chris Cuomo. But anyway, President Donald Trump thinks that CNN news anchor Chris Cuomo is too dangerous to have guns and might need to be forcibly disarmed. Yesterday, video surfaced which showed Cuomo, a frequent Trump critic and brother of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, berating two men out in public who called him Fredo, a term he alleged was an anti-Italian slur akin to the N-word. I'll effin' ruin your SHIT. I'll effin' throw you down these stairs, Cuomo said at one point during the 2-minute video, which was reportedly recorded this past Sunday. This morning, Trump seized on the outburst from one of his prominent media critics by tweeting out a suggestion that red flag laws might allow the seizure of Cuomo's guns. Would Chris Cuomo be given a red flag if his recent rant, filthy language, and a total loss of control? He shouldn't be allowed to have any weapon. He's nuts. So let me get this straight, Mr. Trump. You think he's nuts because of an emotional outburst? How many emotional outbursts have you had over the years, Trump? How many times have you suddenly had an issue or an emotional outburst and started ranting like a madman? I've ranted many times before. Should I not be allowed guns? This is an incredibly low standard for deciding who is and is not unfit for owning a particular thing. I'd even go so far as to call this inane. These laws have been adopted in 17 states, most of which passed them after the 2018 Parkland shooting. The specifics of these laws vary, but they generally allow family and law enforcement to petition a court to order the temporary confiscation of a person's guns if they exhibit signs that they will hurt themselves or others. Following the most recent shootings in El Paso and Dayton, Senator Lindsey Graham said he will introduce a bill that would award grants to states to help them set up their own red flag laws. Graham said supports the bill. Trump supports the bill. Red flag laws are becoming an increasingly popular piece of legislation among both liberals and conservatives as a way of getting guns out of the hands of potential mass shooters. As reasons, Jacob Solom has argued these laws often deprive lawful gun owners of meaningful due process rights. Depending on the state, a wide number of people are able to petition to take someone's guns away. These petitions can often be decided in ex parte hearings, where the person whose weapons might be seized isn't present. Even if they are present at one of these hearings, most states do not guarantee them legal representation. Oh yeah, let's defy your rights while not even talking to you about it. Because who needs that essential human connection? Pfft, who needs that? Who needs to actually talk to someone about themselves to their face? We don't need that. No, you do. In order to understand the weight of the discussion and understand the weight of the decision, you must talk to that person face to face to truly understand them and where they're coming from, as opposed to just where you're coming from. And alternatively, I think it's hilarious how the left can be anti-cop, but at the same time pro-confiscation. Because, oh yes, let's take the guns away from citizens, but then leaves them in the hands of the police that are supposedly so terrible. Yeah. You know, because you never hear about them disarming the police. They actually talk like they're wannabe cop killers, for crying out loud. So no, they think, oh, the police, it's okay for the police to have guns, but citizens? Pfft, no. You kidding me? Gun control. When was the last time you saw a criminal obey the law? No, they'll find a gun elsewhere, believe me. They'll go to a black market, or they'll steal it from an officer's armory or something. I mean, for crying out loud. Why do these people not understand logic? It's not that hard to understand. Hold on a second. Damn. In addition, the lack of truly objective standards for who might be a risk to themselves or others will lead judges to confiscate too many guns, writes Salam, saying that when standards are amorphous, judges are especially likely to err on the side of issuing orders, because they imagine that failing to do so could lead to terrible consequences. Meanwhile, Trump's tweet highlights a different risk of red flag laws. That politicians or law enforcement will let their own petty feuds and emotions influence who they decide to disarm. Invoking red flag laws to disarm one's critics, as Trump has suggested, borders on tyrannical. A good rule of thumb when evaluating a new law is whether you'd want your worst public enemy to be in charge of its enforcement. In the case of red flag laws, do we want Trump in charge of deciding who's too crazy to own a gun? I would say no. And they're absolutely right. Bordering on tyrannical? No, it's absolutely tyrannical. The problem with these red flag laws is they could be applied in very superficial and shallow ways. As we see with Trump wanting to disarm Chris Cuomo. Trump himself is being highly emotionally biased here, which I suppose should come to some of you as literally no surprise whatsoever. Now, to further the story, here's another article. Both these articles are from Reason, Free Minds, Free Markets. It says, red flag laws leave gun owners defenseless. The Trump-endorsed response to mass shootings give due process short shrift. Responding to the mass shootings that took 22 lives in El Paso and 9 in Dayton over the weekend, President Donald Trump said it should be easier to confiscate people's guns when they are deemed a threat to others. That prescription may or may not prevent any murders, but it will certainly hurl many innocent Americans by depriving them of their Second Amendment rights. We must make sure that those judged deposed that gave a risk to public safety do not have access to firearms, and that if they do, those firearms can be taken through rapid due process, the president said on Monday. That is why I have called for red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders. 17 states and the District of Columbia have adopted such laws, most of them since the February 2018 massacre at a high school in Parkland, Florida, although preventing mass shootings is the goal, emphasizes by advocates of red flag laws. Data from Indiana and Connecticut, the first two states to enact them, showed they are mainly used to protect people from their own suicidal impulses. The evidence on whether they succeed in doing that is mixed, and so far there's no firm evidence that red flag laws prevent homicide. One thing is clear, taking away people's guns based on predictions of what they might do with them raises thorny due process issues. Yes it does. There's a whole myriad of ways these sorts of quote-unquote laws can be abused. Like, for instance, as we saw earlier, Trump wanting to disarm Chris Cuomo. Personal bias. Judges can also do the same, lawyers can do the same. Someone might be disarmed because they're currently going under a lot of emotional pressure. Like, say, their wife left them, or their best friend died, or something that caused them to become emotionally imbalanced because they're upset. And they might use that as a basis. And then sometime later, once they calm down and start to become more regular, they regain competency. It's like, nope, you got upset once. We're not allowing you to have guns. You're not allowed to have guns if you're a normal human being. Despite the talk of extreme or grave risks, red flag laws typically refer to a significant risk, and what that means is anybody's guess. Even given the imagined stakes, judges tend to err on the side of granting orders that bar people from possessing guns. In Florida and Maryland, both of which enacted red flag laws soon after the Parkland shooting, initial orders, which are issued before the respondent has a chance to respond, are almost never denied. They last up to 2 weeks in Florida and up to a week in Maryland, where they can be extended for up to 6 months. At the next stage, when the president finally gets a hearing, renewable order lasting up to a year are issued 62% of the time in Maryland and 95% of the time in Florida. The difference in approval rates may have something to do with the fact that Florida allows petition only by law enforcement agencies, and while Maryland opens the door to relatives, intimates, cohabitants, physicians, and mental health specialists. Florida nevertheless allowed judges to consider any evidence they deem relevant and its significant danger. The test is inherently vague, notwithstanding its clear and convincing standard of proof. Some states are even looser, requiring only a preponderance of the evidence, meaning any likelihood greater than 50% that the respondent poses a significant risk. Yeah, this is just all purely arbitrary bullshit. There's no actual objective analysis in this at all. And for that matter, I'm just waiting, now that Florida has adopted these, I'm just waiting for the next Florida Man article. Because those are hilarious. I love the Florida Man articles. Florida Man goes and does something crazy because local government denies him rights to own a gun or whatever. I'm just waiting, folks. I'm just waiting. Okay, this is the final paragraph of the article. The upshot is that people can be stripped of the constitutional right to armed self-defense, even when they almost certainly would not have used a gun to harm themselves or anyone else. All the pressure is on the other side, says Orlando attorney Kendra Paris. There's absolutely no downside to just going ahead and issuing the order. Paris has represented a college student who did not own any guns, had no history of violence, and had never threatened anyone, but who nevertheless was an early target of Florida's red flag law, because he said some stupid things about mass shootings on Reddit. Another client was slapped with a gun confiscation order because he criticized teenage gun control activists online and posted a photo of an AR-15 rifle he had built. David Coppell, a gun policy expert at the Independence Institute in Denver, thinks properly designed red flag laws can have a positive impact, but he emphasizes the importance of procedural safeguards that states have largely failed to adopt. It's a great idea on paper, says Dave Workman, senior editor at the Second Amendment Foundation in Bellevue, Washington. In practice, however, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent, which is the exact opposite of our legal system. Again, these laws are arbitrary. These standards are arbitrary. It's nonsense and it's bullshit. Plus, they completely disregard the very concept of context. You see something happen in context, then you have no freaking idea what's really going on. So yeah, this is absolutely terrible. And these things need to be pulled off the books absolutely right away, immediately, before they have a chance to become an embedded part of our United States legal code. Anyway.